today what we were supposed to look at is the qualitative research and some new research methodology. Today we are going to talk about qualitative research methods and with special focus on in-depth interviews, triad interviews, focus group discussions, mini group interviews and creative groups. Let's start with the in-depth interviews. I don't know if you have ever participated in in-depth interviews, but this method requires one person who asks the questions, so the interviewer, and another person who answers the questions, so the interviewee. Well, usually these in-depth interviews are around 40, 50, 60, or could even be longer, 60 minutes or even longer than 1 hour. So it is quite time consuming, especially if you do or conduct more interviews, not just one. And usually this is the case, so one interview is usually not enough. But these are quite long and requires an interviewer who is quite prepared with the topic and also with the psychology behind asking people their own opinion. The interview itself can also be semi-structured or unstructured or structured depending on what kind of questions you have prepared. So you might have a complete list of 20-something questions that you might want to ask, or maybe you are doing an investigation and you are not that familiar with the topic. In this case, it could be semi-structured or unstructured. So you have certain topics that you want to discuss, but you don't have specific questions. And of course, the interviewer has to be a qualified person who knows how to ask questions. Usually it's us, the researchers or economists, but psychologists also do these interviews, and also sociologists who are interested in people's opinion and views in person. As you see, this is rather an in-depth conversation which takes quite a long time. Therefore, I think it's important to for it to take place where people are free to say their opinion or where they feel safe. So usually interviews take place in an isolated room or in a room which is quite peaceful and quiet, so that you can understand each other well. When you're doing an in-depth interview, how you should start is basically telling your interviewee that you would like to record the conversation so that you will remember it later on, so you don't have to type. But even though it is recorded, it's totally anonymous, so you won't use the answers with the interviewee's names, so that they would feel that they can tell you their answers without any fear of it being ever uncovered, and that you will take care of the data in a sensitive way, so you wouldn't give it to a third party or other people. And this makes sure that your respondent knows that you are handling the data well, you are not giving it out to other people, and they are safe and the answers are safe with you, so you're handling it in a professional way. But in the meantime, if you feel that noting down certain aspects of the interview could help, of course feel free to note down anything that you feel that is important. For example, if you are doing an interview and you feel that your respondent feels nervous, you should definitely note down these things, because for the second interview you will be able to prepare yourself for these kind of situations, and you might get familiar with methods how you can make your respondent less, let's say, nervous about the topic that you are asking them. So these interviews, of course, have some positive sides, some advantages, and also some negative sides, some disadvantages as well. The advantages is that you can get an insight that otherwise in a questionnaire you would never get. So the respondents are entitled to tell their answers in their own way, with their own words. You can also get quality data. You will not get quantitative data, but quality data, so words and sentences to analyze later. It is much more personal than a questionnaire, meaning for some people it might be a better way to express themselves, and people also might be willing to open up much easier in person than in a questionnaire. But on the other hand, if you look at the disadvantages, we can also know that for some other people, it might not be the best case, because while some people might open up, Some people might just close and entirely freeze and not willing to answer your questions if you are there as the interviewer. So the interviewer, him or herself, has also an effect on the interviewee, which can also be negative. It is quite expensive as well. So if you would like to conduct in-depth interviews with 30 people, it's expensive if you pay for the interviewer to do it. But you just if you just think of money, it's not just money, it is also time consuming. So the expenses can be measured in money or in time, because if you do it yourself, doing 20 something interviews is at least 20 something hours, plus it takes a long time to analyze the results. So if you have interviews, you record them, and then the second step is that you have to transcribe it, meaning you have to note down each sentence the way it was said, which sounds not that hard, but it is actually quite hard to get every sentence, because we tend not to finish each sentence in speech, because we have the opportunity to change our thoughts, and we have the opportunity to change our sentences. So it is very hard to note down the sentences exactly as they were said or they were told. And after you have noted these down, third task is basically to have a unique way of how you're going to analyze it. And this is something that you have to come up with, unless there is a method already in the literature of your scope of research that has been done. But otherwise, you have to use your own codes, you have to use your own analysis for analyzing the results, which is also quite complex and quite time consuming. In order to do in-depth interviews well, you have to be quite prepared to react to any situation that can arise. Let's move on to triad interviews. These are a little bit different from in-depth interviews, because at in-depth interviews there are two people. One person is the interviewer and the other is the interviewee. But in case of triad, as it's in its name, there are three people present, and usually one interviewer and two people who are being interviewed. Well, at what situations does it make sense to create triad interviews? Well, in those situations when, for example, if you had only asked one person as the interviewer, one person wouldn't be qualified to tell you the exact answer for the questions. For example, if you researched how young couples are willing to have children, then in this case, there you are, the interviewer, and you might not just want to ask the mother or the future mother to be. But in this decision, hopefully, and most often, both of the parties are interested in. So if you would like to ask young couples' willingness to have children, then you might want to ask the couple itself. So there are three people already in the interview. So triads are usually used when you would like to get unified opinion and a unified answer for your questions. It also has some advantages and disadvantages. It has the advantages and disadvantages of the in-depth interviews, but they also have some additional ones. For example, if there are two people present with you, it means that they can easily influence each other. So they might not be telling their own opinion, but the opinion that has been influenced by the other party. And also, if one of the parties is much more, I'd say, has a much stronger personality, then he or she can take over the conversation, and the other person would be silent for the whole time. And if there is a bad choice of topic, the people might shut down once again and not answer your questions, and maybe a discussion wouldn't happen at all. Yeah, and it is also expensive and time consuming, same as the in-depth interviews. But on the other hand, it also has some advantages, because there is this special dynamic that is added to the discussion that you would otherwise not get. Special dynamic of people that you see that they are cooperating, they are talking in a specific manner, which otherwise you won't be able to see. It is still personal. You can compare the opinion of people, and if you are well qualified and know how to handle different people's opinion, then even though the two people have different opinions, you will be able to get it out from them. So you will be able to to trick them telling you their real opinion, even though they might have an influence on each other. Okay, so this was the second method. The third method we are going to discuss today are the focus groups. Well, we had in-depth interviews with 2 people, triad interviews with 3. Well, in case of focus groups, you have 6 to 12 people at one occasion. You can imagine this as people sitting around a table and discussing certain topics. Well, why is it good to have 6 to 12 people in a focus group discussion? Well, this is probably the mostly used research method in terms of qualitative researches, because here you don't get 1 or 2 people's opinion, but at the same time you can get more opinions and maybe conflicting opinions as well. So focus groups are the perfect opportunity for people maybe to debate a topic or think about a topic in different ways. So for example, if I'm willing to research people's, let's say, travel habits before COVID-19, I might be willing to ask people to come to a focus group. Let's say I ask 6 people who don't travel at all, and I ask 6 people who travel a lot. And I ask them certain questions that why do you like traveling? Do you travel at all? And maybe ask them for the reasons of traveling or not traveling. These six people would try to compare their opinion in front of me as a researcher. And the whole process of building arguments could be useful for me and for my research. So this is why focus groups are extremely used and extremely good. But on the other hand, they can be very lengthy. So as an in-depth interview is 1 hour or so, focus groups could be even longer. So once I've been in a focus group which was 3 hours long, because the participants were enjoying the topic so much and they kept talking that they told us very, very good things, and we had really good results from that research. But in this case, working with 6 or 12 people could be extremely hard. So the interviewer or the conductor has to be also quite prepared. So the moderator should be experienced, and you can get experience by trying it with maybe family, friends, how it works, how you can moderate people. Because it can also happen that there are some people who feel quite dominant and they talk all the time. But you have to be able to somehow make them be quiet for a certain period of time until you get the shyer people opinion, or people's opinion who don't like saying it or saying their opinion out loud that much, or who might not be comfortable. And this goes to the next disadvantage, which is basically people might be afraid of speaking in front of other people, or not interested at all, not interested in it at all, and they might not say their opinion, or they might not be willing to tell their opinion in this way. Okay, so usually the focus groups are similar to somehow the in-depth interviews, because in all the cases you have a script. So you have certain set of questions that you would like to ask, or if it's not structured, you at least have certain topics that you would like to discuss. So you have a script, or you have a semi-structured script with the questions and with the topics that you would like to ask. And when you are, I think there are 2 key elements that you have to take into account. The first is when you are choosing your focus group subjects, you have to make sure that you don't know those people who you are asking, which is extremely hard. Because if you ask those people who you know, you are already influencing their answers because they know you. They might answer in a different way because they know you. You choose the respondents. Before you choose the respondents, you have to make sure that there is, an applied methodology that you use. So when choosing them, try to apply a questionnaire first. And it might sound strange that, okay, why should I need a questionnaire because I'm doing a qualitative research? But with a questionnaire, you can basically filter who you would like to involve.